All right, so we're going to be looking at this part. This is going to be my first model. So I'm going to be showing you another one in a minute of actually working on the work. But right now, we're just going to kind of like observe what we've already done. Okay, so this is a piece of student work. Okay, and I can see their drawings. This is number one, and this is number two. On your work, you have it on two different slides. So this is the first slide, and this is the second slide. But over here, I see some guiding questions. So right now, I'm just going to look through this work and see how I can answer these questions. Okay? So it says, what did the student draw to represent the tables? Okay, well, here I can see in this first picture, it looks like they actually tried to draw tables. So I can write that here, that this student drew tables for number one. And then for number two, it looks like they drew circles around the chairs. So they drew circles. And then for number two, they drew circles. Okay, so they don't really have tables for number two as clearly drawn as the first one, but I can tell how they're grouped, so that had to be their tables, right? Okay, so that was my answer, and I'm going to change the color so that it's easier for you to see. Now, the second one says, what did the student use to represent the 20 children? So I have to look over here. How did they draw the children? Okay, well, here I see that they actually drew stick figures, right? So for number one, they drew stick people. That's not what they did for number two. For number two, they drew chairs, right? Let me look at the question. There are 20 children in music class. 6 children can sit at each table. How many tables do they need? Yeah, okay, so these are the tables, or these are the chairs, right? Because the circle is the table, okay? And so it doesn't say anything about chairs. So I'm assuming these 6 children are these 6 chairs. Okay, so they drew chairs to represent the children. Okay, so I'm gonna step out. How do you know what am I looking at here to answer these questions? That's right, I'm looking back at the work. Am I changing my work? No, right now I'm just looking at see what I already did, right? I'm going to change the work later in the lesson. Right now I'm just observing what I already have. Okay, I'm going to continue. All right, there's one more question for me to answer. Okay, so here, change my color again so it stands out. How does the student communicate their equal grouping strategy? What does that mean? How did they communicate their equal grouping strategy? Well, I know from yesterday's math message, it talked about how we could draw a picture, a number, and words. Well, I don't see any words because I know communicating means how do you share your thinking. But I do see the pictures here. So this student drew pictures. In the first one, right, they drew the actual people and the tables. And for the second one, they drew the circles with the chairs. And I answered that for 1 and 2. So really, the student drew the pictures to show how many children could sit at each table, right? By grouping the students / chairs at each table, I think is how I'm going to word that, right? Because here it's saying that they group them together at the tables, right? Or with the chairs. Okay, so that's kind of how they communicate. They just drew the pictures. They don't have any numbers here. I don't see any words to explain it. I don't see any arrays. I just see these pictures showing them at the tables. And I think this would be called, equal groups. Okay, so I'm going to add that. The student drew pictures showing equal groups to show how many children. Okay, I think that would be a good answer, right? Wanting to put in that specific strategy of equal groups. Because remember, we learned equal groups, we learned arrays, right? We talked about lots of different strategies with the division. So I think that that would be good. All right, so you guys are going to kind of think through, okay, just like I did. Your answer is not going to be exactly perfect, right? So see how I kind of like wrote a little bit and stopped and thought, does that make sense? Could I add some more? So maybe you're going to want to do that too. So you guys are going to look back at your work, and I would like for you to do this as a we do. Have someone at home help you look through your work, because sometimes it's hard to look at our own work and then see what we did. Sometimes we get caught up in like trying to fix it or change it, or we just kind of get confused. We don't really remember what we did. So having someone at home would be really nice to help you today. Okay, so I would, you're answering the same questions that I had to answer for my model. Okay, if you could have someone help you answer these, that would be great, right? Answer your questions here. Then you could continue working with this person at home and start thinking about what pieces of criteria do you think are most important to have in your work today? Do you think that you need to have your number model? Do you need to explain the steps using words? Do you think you need to draw tables or like the circles for the groups like my student did, right? And one of them they drew tables, the other they drew circles. Do you think that they need to have that there's 20 children? Or do you think maybe that's not important? They could draw as many children as they want. Okay. Do you think that you need to have your answer on your paper? Is that important? What about labeling your thinking? Like, these are the children, these are the tables. Okay, so what do you think is most important? So you're going to number these. So you should have these numbers here, and you're going to put them in the order you think is most important. Okay, and then after that, I'm going to have another model here where I'm going to show you now actually how to fix up my work. Now that we've talked about the pieces that should be in your work and what is the most important piece to have in your work, then I'm going to show you how to fix it. All right, so make sure you're working with somebody at home for this part of the lesson.